How strong is the main antagonist of Questism, Choyun? To answer this, we once again have to look at the legend that is Johan. As many of you are aware, when Johan was introduced into Questism in chapter 94, we got a reading saying evaluation unsuccessful over his stat window. Now notice how I said over his stat window. If you zoom in onto said window, you can see Johan's stat window behind the red pop-up. And if you take a close look, you can see the stat bars for Johan's stats. This would mean that Choyun is able to see Johan's stats until something bugs it out. We'll get back to what that something is in a minute. But Tekka, I hear you saying, Choyun isn't there, so how can you say that? How can he see Johan's stats if he's not even there? The issue is, every time we see a stat window, it is meant to be as if we were seeing it from Choyun's perspective, to give us, the readers, an accurate basis for power within the series. The only real exceptions we've had were Daniel, which was to build anticipation and intentionally leave us in the dark, and Jaha, which was for the same thing, though to a very different effect. But how does this relate to Choyun? When we meet Choyun, it is revealed that Choyun cannot see Choyun's stats whatsoever. And we know that Choyun's stats haven't really improved since then, outside of the little +2 endurance he got after absorbing a little bit of Ryu's strength. This is, of course, until the 2-month time skip, though we don't know how strong Choyun is at the moment. We just know he's grown significantly. We also know he is able to see the stats of those who are unimaginably stronger than himself, like the aforementioned Ryu. Choyun at the time had triple S stats, and Ryu's lowest stats were SR, so it's an absolutely insane gap between the two, yet Choyun can still see Ryu's stats. So while Choyun can see Johan's stats until something bugs them out, he cannot see Choyun's stats at all. But Tekka, Johan's stats glitched the system. He's too strong for the system to handle. Now, this would be a good argument if it wasn't actually impossible. You see, the system created by the card god functions like a supercomputer, able to process an absurd amount of calculations and formulate problems on the fly. For those that don't know, a basic computer can process around 1 million calculations a second. The supercomputers we currently have can process around 1 quintillion. And while the stats in Questism are given in an alphabetic grade, it would still require mathematical calculation to determine physical stats, such as speed, strength, durability, etc. In other words, it is mathematically impossible for someone's raw physical stats to short out the system. Thus, the argument that Johan's raw physical strength, speed, durability could short out the system is frankly ludicrous. And if you want to ignore the supercomputer argument, this is a system made by an extra-dimensional reality warping card god who can stop time at will. A card god who is seemingly responsible for not just every amp we see in Questism, but every amp we see in the PTJ verse, and is able to grant Quest users any ability it wants so long as they earn it. But let's focus on the amps for a second. When Jaha gets his awakening, it is revealed that the state he can enter is the self-hatred state, which for those that don't know, is the heat state characters like Samuel and Daniel Park can enter. We even see the card explanation is almost exactly what Samuel describes. Then there is conviction. Within Questism, we see that when characters are filled with conviction, they are able to awaken a newfound strength, like we see with Hajun. Now, where have we seen this before? That's right, Lookism. And actually not just Lookism, but nearly all of PTJ as well. And we've seen it numerous times, as you can see on screen. Even when groups rise due to an unknown strength to keep fighting. The entire reason why amps function the way they do is because of the card god. So if we have an entity that is this powerful, that governs the entire verse, Johan's physical ability being what caused the system to glitch makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So, what caused the system to glitch? Simply put, one of the only things that can cause a supercomputer to glitch, an infinite value. That infinite value being Johan's potential as a copycat. You see, copycats within PTJ can always grow. There are always new techniques being made, and sometimes entirely new martial arts. And a copycat can always learn them, forever expanding their arsenal and growing as fighters. Now, to immediately debunk the argument that people use against this, no, that does not mean that they can blow up the planet. They can always grow as fighters by expanding their arsenal. That doesn't mean they can eventually nuke a country. It's an infinite potential for skill, not physicality. Though yes, their physical potential is still insane, they aren't going to become country busters. That is the most outlandish way to interpret the argument. Actually, not even the most outlandish. I heard someone try to debunk this by saying that they could become universal for some odd reason. With all this in mind, Choyun is able to see Johan's stats until his potential bugs them out. But he cannot see Choyun's stats at all. Thus, Choyun should be massively stronger than base Johan. Now to address the debunks that I have seen for this argument. The first one being that Choyun being this strong doesn't make sense narratively. In all actuality, it makes perfect sense. I know that's hard to believe, but it genuinely does. The system provides a way for card users to grow massively in an incredibly short amount of time, while granting them some of the most insane abilities we have ever seen, such as Mana Drain, which we know Choyun has. System users can theoretically grow infinitely, which was established further when Choyun got the Mana Drain card. They're essentially more broken copycats. All of this allows system users to theoretically face off against anyone, so long as they complete enough quests. Choyun should be reaching this level, as he has had the system for a substantially longer time than Choyun. So yes, it actually makes perfect narrative sense for Choyun to be that far above Johan due to how long he's had the system and how strong it would have made him, thanks to that potential the system provides. And before someone says it, no, they aren't going to have the infinite potential stat, as the system isn't actually part of them. It can enhance their stats and grant them power, but it is not something that stems from themselves. It is also something they can lose at a moment's notice by failing really any quest they are given outside of the side quests, which are optional. This is why their potential doesn't read as infinite. The next and most common debunk I've seen is that God Dog Johan conquered Gangbuk, and thus Choyun would be below God Dog Johan. The reason this argument fails is because Johan conquered Gangbuk 3 years ago when Jing Jang was top dog. We have seen current Jing Jang in Questism, and his stats are frankly garbage. Keep in mind, this would be Jing Jang after his training with Samuel, which would put him seemingly on par with Wang Ho, the strongest third affiliate executive, or at least third affiliate executive level as a whole. So Johan conquered a vastly, and I mean vastly, weaker Gangbuk. The characters we see in Questism are unimaginably stronger than anything Johan faced when he conquered Gangbuk, say when he encountered Gun every once in a while, because it's Gun, obviously. This argument also ignores the fact that Choyun has the system, which, might I add, is the reason why everyone in North Gangbuk is so strong. But what about Chapter 95? Didn't North Gangbuk have to plan for Johan? The answer to this is simple. Yes, they planned for him. No, they did not have to. For those that aren't understanding, it is far easier to take down a strong opponent with multiple strong people, even if you yourself are stronger than said person. Taking down Johan alone would take far too much time due to how resilient he is, something Choyun should have knowledge of. Thus, send out all your strong people and squash him in one fell swoop. Obviously, they don't know about the fact that he can copy UI, but that isn't even something that gets revealed till the Big Deal War arc. Another reason why Choyun hasn't just beaten Johan is because he seems to just follow whatever the system tells him to do, as we see when the 2-month truce is proposed. He has literally no reason to accept this truce. He could squash them then and there, but because the system tells him, hey, if you accept the truce, you're going to get a new card, he does it. He has no reason to move unless the system tells him to. That's the type of person he is being established to be. He also likely just knew Johan wasn't a threat anymore thanks to the system. We've seen that he seemingly knows literally everything that can happen at this point. So that really isn't out of the question, is actually very, very likely. With all that being said, it is clear that Choyun could frankly destroy base Johan. And honestly, so would Questism Daniel, who, by the way, makes Choyun's scaling even more insane. But that's a video for another day. I apologize for the wait. Hope you all enjoyed. If you have any issues with the reasoning provided, I would be more than happy to discuss it, given I have time. And also, provide new debunks. Again, more than happy to discuss it, so long as I have time for this. That being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.